Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Immersive Podcast. Thank you so much for being here. I'm here today with a super amazing guest. As always, you guys are used to me saying that. But today, it's a guest who's a friend of mine, and I'm proud, honored, and happy to call him a friend. His name's Dutch, and he is one of the most renowned tattoo artists in this great country of ours. How you doing today, Dutch? Great
Oh,
to
doing
see you here.
wonderful, Tyler. Thank you, brother. Thanks for having me.
Thanks
Appreciate it.
for being here. Where are you speaking to me from? Are you
I'm in Florida. I'm in Merritt Islands, about 10 minutes from Cocoa Beach.
Oh, okay, excellent, awesome. Yeah, I'm in the Tampa Bay area, just Tarpon Springs, not Tampa,
Tampa Bay.
but moving around a little bit. Quick shout out to the affiliate sponsors: GFL Clothing, Galactic Federation Light. See our episode with Dotan and Tavel; it was very well received. They do clothing for light workers, botanically charged clothing. Things like paying attention to the frequency, wool versus linen, etc. And obviously, responsibly sourced clothing, very comfortable. And, that's what I'm wearing right now. They're my line. Use the code Tyler33. The hat's on me. They have a few hats, the GFL logo ones, and a few with some slogans and such. And also, Unified TV, Network of Truth. I kind of say that a lot. There's a free trial in the link in the bio. And if you get the yearly subscription, you get access to all their live events for free. So go ahead and check that out. So happy to have Dutch here. Happy to be recording. And yeah, Dutch is here not just to talk about his tattoos and such, but he's got quite a story. And I personally am so glad to have him here because it's important. That's what we do here at the Immersive Podcast. A little bit of everything. So Dutch, my friend, what's going on today? You own a tattoo shop in Cocoa Beach? Is that kind of your day-to-day these days?
It is, yeah. I own a shop here in close to Cocoa Beach. I've been open probably about a year and a half now, but I'm doing well. I'm doing a little traveling this week. I'm going to Japan the 29th, and we'll be tattooing out there for a month. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Really, really cool. So that's kind of interesting. Have you ever is that something that the style of tattoo, in different cultures and everything is something that I've kind of looked into a little bit.
Uh-huh.
The way they do tattoos in Japan, is it a lot different than the way that you were accustomed to doing tattoos in America, or is it something similar? How does that kind of tie in?
Okay, so they have kind of an ancient method which is called tabori, which is done with bamboo. It is a bamboo stick, and you tie needles on there. It's actually a type of tattooing that I'm studying right now, and that's part of the reason why I'm going to Japan.
Awesome.
Is to continue studying that. But Japan has some deep history when it comes to tattooing. They used to, hundreds of years ago, they would tattoo prisoners. They had like a three-strike rule. If you stole something, they give you a dot on your hand.
One
You do it a
tattoo.
second time, they give you a second dot. You do it a third time, and then they're going to mark you on your forehead. And then for the rest of your life, everywhere you go, you're going to be known as a thief or whatever it is, and kind of be seen as a lower class in society.
So it had a little more meaning than just self-expression. It was you've seen other examples in history, but yeah, that's I've definitely heard some interesting things regarding the history of tattoo in Japan, but I by no means am an expert, so I thought I would just touch on the subject and ask you.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
But that's awesome that you're going about it that way.
Thank you.
I'm a multimedia artist myself. Tattooing is not one of them, but I always like to look at things that way from how do different cultures approach
sure.
this art form. Cool that
Definitely.
you're doing that.
Thank you.
When did you get started in the tattoo business? How old were you when you first started doing tattoos?
Okay, let's see. I was 25 years old when I got into the tattoo business. I had grown up around a group of kids that were kind of the punk scene, and they were into tattoos and things like that. And we had one of the guys in the group who became a tattoo artist, and he would tattoo us. So fast forward a couple years, and I'm going to St. Pete College, majoring in computer science. And I wake up one morning and I picture spending the rest of my life sitting in front of a computer screen wearing a suit. And I thought, I can't do that. It just like wasn't me, and it didn't, the whole computer science major, my brother had done that. He had done really well. The government had pulled him out of college and gave him a real high paying job. And, I thought, that was the way I would go. Computers kind of the new thing at the time.
Yeah, of course.
Um, but like I said, when I woke up that morning and, realized I was going to be doing something I'm not passionate about or don't enjoy, that maybe I need to rethink that. So I kind of thought about, well, what do I enjoy doing, and the only thing I could really come up with was art, was that, that's what I really enjoy. So I kind of researched different careers in art, but there wasn't too many where you could make a good living without the use of computers. Like saying you're just going to be an artist is like saying I'm going to be an actor, an actress. You're not
Yeah,
guaranteed a paycheck every week
of
doing
course.
that.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so tattoos kind of popped into my head. I always thought it was cool and interesting. So what I did is I went to the most well-known tattoo artist in town. His name was Evil Dawn in St. Petersburg.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is
and
he still here? I'm close to St. Pete right now. Is he still around or no?
he just moved to, I'm not exactly sure what city. I saw it on Instagram or something. He's in
Oh,
like
okay.
Brooksville or something. But he
Cool,
was a
cool.
staple, one of the original tattoo guys and around that area. So when he was tattooing me, I started picking his brain. I said, "How do you get in this industry, man?" And he gave me some pointers. He said, "You put your drawings together and get a little book and go shop to shop and ask for an apprenticeship." And so I went to a couple places, but a lot of tattoo shops, they just brush you off. They come in, they're like, yeah, they're like, "Get out of here, kid." And but so then I found a couple artists that were really good that I wanted to learn from. So during an apprenticeship, normally you would work for a year in the shop, and you do all the cleaning and the setup and whatever they want you to do, go grab food, things like that.
Right.
Exactly, right. Yep. And then in turn, you're right, they will teach you in exchange for you working. But I had found an artist, owned a real successful shop on Clearwater Beach and had family ties to the biggest tattoo supply company in the world. And they were willing to take a check. You pay for the apprenticeship, that they're not willing to do free apprenticeships. It's right. And I wanted to approach, yeah. I wanted to approach it just like I was approaching college. I'm like, I want to learn from the best. If I'm gonna, drop out of college because I had a free ride, it was all paid for, and I'm like, if I'm gonna leave college, I want to learn from, the best that I could find.
Yeah, an alternative education can still be a parallel education. It just, that's a really good point to make to people out there. You can get that alternative education, but I like the way that you kind of voiced that was like I wanted to approach it like, university where I was still getting the information from those, that had the best info, the state of the art at the time, the people who you respected, the people who were going to be able to educate you the best, even if it costs a little something. I mean, that's how a lot of things are. Just to tie that into university versus tattooing versus really anything. That's an interesting point. Sorry to interrupt there. I just
Oh, no, yeah, no, interrupt, man. You're good. Yeah, I think a lot of people think that, there's people that have this picture in their mind, my kid has to go to college and that's the only way you're going to be successful and things like that. But, I've met people that have gone to college and they get out and they have a degree, but they can't really use it for much, and they've got a lot of money they've got to pay back, and I definitely, I'm for people going to college, of course, but it's not the only way to success. You know what I mean? It's
100%.
yeah,
Especially
yeah.
especially in the arts. I mean, of course, to bash college and the obvious argument is like, well, what about doctors and dentists and lawyers? Like, yeah, of course, the professionals need to go through those channels to learn those things. But to become a great artist and open a business and that involves that art, I mean, yes, of course, you could go into art school and get a minor in business, or you could really just dive into the real world and do that. They're both possible. But I think you're right that we're kind of, I mean, in America, kids are generally taught that the former is the right way and the latter is the kind of renegade, rogue, not really going to work out way. Which is funny because I think if you look at the statistics, the most successful, real outlier successful situations are those who were the renegades, the dreamers, the ones who
Exactly. Yeah.
didn't
Oh,
take
yeah.
the safe path.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
I don't think you were one of those people. That's why we're chatting today, of course. That's why we know each
Appreciate
other.
that.
I'm not one of those people. I've always lived life right on the edge.
Oh, yeah.
See a lot from the edge and you don't get to see from the
Yeah.
center. I always
It's
wanted to
more
see it.
exciting that way, right? The other road is more, it's exciting. Yeah, man. But I think a main thing is to with careers is to go for a passion. You got parents who want their kids, say they were a doctor and they want their kids to be a doctor, and the parent wants to conform and do what the kid wants to do what the parent wants, but then the kid's not happy with the career the rest of your life. You know what I mean? Yeah.
I'm not a doctor. I'm not in the medical industry, but I have doctor friends and colleagues and such people I interview. I respect them immensely. I mean, they're passionate about what they do. It's their life. So to them, it's an art form. It's the way you look at tattooing, the way playing music, the way I look at content in interviews and things like that. Most things can get translated into an art form if you truly are passionate enough about it. But to become something like a doctor, for example, out of anything but pure passion sounds crazy. I mean, we all know how much dedication, time, and resources it takes to become
Exactly.
something
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah, for sure. You're right. Yep, yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
So with
man.
tattooing, so and that's awesome the way that you mentioned, that you just felt like you were an artist. And that's amazing because a lot of people, we are just that, artists, and people dabble in many different media and such. But I bet that resonates with somebody out there who's thinking, so I could do tattoos? They're somewhat artistic and they could learn, maybe you didn't sit there
Right,
growing
right,
up drawing and
right, right.
thinking about tattooing,
Mhm.
but if you're creative and you're an artist, it's such.
Exactly. I was talking with this about someone the other day, because a lot of people, there's people that tell me, oh, I could never be a tattoo artist, right? I can't draw. And I think some people don't think out of the box. I tell people, if you practice drawing for a year, you could probably draw pretty good after a year. I tell people it's almost like, say you want to become a plumber, you don't have to be good with pipes or tools beforehand. You learn, you practice, and you put in effort, and it's something you could pull off. Now, not everybody can say they can become a doctor because, of course, that level of intelligence you got to have with, you know what I mean? But with tattooing, I think, put in the practice, find a good teacher, and some people say, well, I don't have that artistic gift, like some people are born being able to draw and things like that. But you had mentioned a point though. To me, it doesn't have to be an artistic talent. It could just be through a creative. If you're
Being
creative, if you sing, if you see things a little different than other people and can create,
Yes,
then
then that
it's
could be
something that could work for it.
manifested and honed
Yep.
and
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah.
developed and watered into a physical skill, something that you could really tangibly see. And I thought that was a really cool point that you made. So let's get into a little bit more of things. I first met Dutch probably going on 7, 8, 10 years ago. I don't know, quite some time ago, many years ago. And you were doing two tattoos here in the Tampa area. You're doing really well. Everybody was like, yeah, Dutch did great work.
I appreciate that.
You were doing
Thank you.
well. It was amazing. And of course, I'm thankful for you agreeing to come and speak with me today. But
Sure.
it's my understanding that, of course, things kind of started to go a little bit wild for you as far as that dream career was going. And I know we
Yeah.
skipped over a little bit of the apprentice at 25 to successful artist, that's so and so. Yeah, Dutch did become a successful tattoo artist. We established that. But
For sure.
yeah, that decade or so ago when I guess we disconnected for some period of time there.
Mhm.
Why don't would you tell me and the audience a little bit about what happened there as far as going from what I saw was a very successful, sought after, the man that I kind of see in front of me, a very successful, sought after tattoo artist. I
Yeah.
understand you had some struggles there. Is that That be safe to say?
Yeah, especially in the tattoo industry, it's kind of accepted to drink, party, do drugs, people they give it as gifts, they give it as tips.
It's a little bit of a rock
Um,
and roll lifestyle
right,
inherently.
exactly, exactly. At the club, people, handing you stuff here, try this and
Right.
I've lived a life of excess in a lot of different ways. Also experienced a lot of different things in life. I was always kind of like that, kind of rebellious and wanted to try the forbidden fruit of everything. You know what I mean? But yeah. So let's see, where can we bring? What point can we bring it to? In my tattoo career, everything had been going great. I traveled around the world and tattooed rock stars and been on TV and newspapers and different things like that. Just cool stuff. I'm not like famous or anything like that, but I've just done some cool stuff and gotten some exposure and stuff, right? Had some cool friends, that are famous, but I've had a lot of fun in the industry, but I've always kind of dabbled in things that I call it playing with fire, you know. And addiction like ran in my family. Growing up when I was young, my mom was like, you can't do drugs. Is what you can't drink, you can't do any of this.
It's interesting that she said that to you because, it's something that runs in my family as well. My mother, she was one that she would say that.
Uh-huh,
You know better. It
uh-huh,
runs in the family. Like,
uh-huh,
it doesn't really work when you tell that to a teenager.
uh-huh.
But yeah, it's interesting to see that, to hear you say also, like, you were aware of that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, but as a teenager, I had a really good childhood. Parents were awesome, did just about everything, baseball team, soccer team, all types of musical instruments and gymnastics, karate, and I mean tennis, all types, my dad worked really hard to provide. My mom, would take us to all these different events and things to do and private schools, and I had a really good childhood, but then when I hit teenage years, I just turned rebellious, extremely rebellious, cigarettes, weed, acid and just going nuts on everything. Yeah, okay, so let's see. We'll fast forward to tattooing. So I'm becoming a tattoo artist and
It
these
seems like
days there I'm sorry?
naturally that just becoming an artist, like you said, and getting into that career and, looking back now, knowing that that was the way that you kind of were approaching life a little bit as an adolescent, even just, that playing with fire, that you kind of wanted to edge and see a little bit more than others might see kind of thing. I was very much the same way. Uh, that just, carried over, it seems, into the tattoo career, which, of course, I can identify with, and a lot of others can who've been in whatever industry it is. But within the
Sure.
arts, whether it's music or acting or, whatever it is, those industries do tend to, I don't want to say cater to, but, they're inherently mixed in with substance abuse and things like that. It's not so frowned upon as it is in, probably, I would guess, I've never been a real estate agent before, but I'd imagine it's less accepted there than if you're a guitar player or a tattoo artist. So, that probably just, would I be correct in saying that, that attitude as an adolescent, given that, success as a tattoo artist in a career like that, that kind of, for lack of a better word, kind of enables and almost not glorifies, but accepts at least that kind of lifestyle.
Mhm. Oh, for sure.
It could
Yeah,
be a little bit of a recipe for disaster, given the wrong emotional state and everything like that. I mean, it just depends.
definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, one of the things growing up is, I grew up with like social anxiety, and trying to be a tattoo artist with anxiety was not an easy thing. Even as a kid with anxiety, I realized later on that a lot of the partying and the drug use was trying to to not feel the way I felt, you know. But still getting in the tattoo industry at the time, it's you have almost a free pass to, we're drinking at work, we're getting, drunk at the end of the day. At the end of the day, we'll close the shop and then we're all partying.
It's normal.
And right. And even or even as artists, some of us we used to believe that if we smoked some pot or whatever it was, or drank a little bit and then tattooed, that we're almost gonna tattoo better, right? Because we're more creative, with smoking some pot, or oh, my nerves are chilled if I just have a shot or two and things like that. You know what I mean? So it's a common, you know,
Very common. Yeah, absolutely. Super,
yeah, man,
super common. And I've
yeah,
always, marveled people who can just, because, I do actually believe there is something to that. But of course, there's nothing is good in massive excess. I mean, moderation is generally the answer to most questions. Not everybody can handle that. So, not everybody can find that little sweet spot of, just a little enhanced creativity without going too far, over the
sure.
edge. I mean, that's definitely how it was for me, as a musician, and then even, as a lot of people know, like I became an interior designer. I did the kind
Mhm,
of boardroom white collar thing for quite some time.
mhm,
That world. When I was living pretty comfortably and such, still felt that pull towards, that escapism and such. I still felt like I'm the talent, I'm the artist. As long as I'm still doing what I'm doing, I'm sought after.
mhm.
I can
Right.
escape in that way, etc. There was always that kind of weird tie to it, and yeah, it self perpetuates until a point. What was the big point in your career where you think, looking back, that things kind of changed from? And of course, this is a little bit of a personal question, but when things kind of changed from that, that accepted normal partying and just, going along, learning the ropes of the industry and participating, to
Mhm.
no, this might be a problem. This might take me out
Might
of the
crash and
industry.
burn.
This might crash and
Yeah.
burn. Was there a
Yep.
moment like that? Was there a period of time, etc.?
There was, yeah. I think what it started is I think it started with my mindset, right? I started to become kind of depressed, and I lost my confidence. I didn't enjoy tattooing anymore. I thought that I had been in this industry too long, and maybe that I couldn't keep up with the newer crowd that's coming in. Yeah, and I think that's where it started, with just not being happy with myself in my life, but it was just a period of time. It was also the shop that I was working at. I didn't enjoy working there, but I kind of got stuck in my head, and it, just
So
wasn't
that's interesting, actually, because
Mhm.
that kind of just goes to show that it doesn't actually have to be like, yeah, it's when I got in an accident and I broke my back, or, my whole family was killed in a plane crash, or some, just insert tragedy here.
right.
It can be somewhat, individually seeming mundane set of circumstances, but, individually mundane, but tied together creates a situation where, it's the consequences could be dire, which is, I think, important to note. It's not like life can just add up. It can build up on you, and I'm sure you'll touch on it more, but when you get in your head like that, it's the same, it can have the same consequences on your, the way you're going to react, and the way, at least I know I tend to act, or at least used to tend to act, just getting in my head too much compared to, even if something really quite awful actually did happen,
Mhm.
I could create that just as bad, or just as well, however you want to, refer to
Sure.
it, by just creating it here.
Exactly. Yeah. On paper and everyone else, I was living kind of a dream life. I had a gorgeous fiance, who was a nurse, and nice Lexus, and I had the house and the dog and the all types of material things, friends and family, and but I for some reason I just wasn't happy with myself, and I just had an idea one day to just get high, so I was like,
Just
mate,
escape a little bit.
right, exactly, right,
Just
yep,
kind of get out of there for a minute.
yep.
You know,
And yeah, so it carried on for a while, and I ended up getting into a car accident, and I had let's see, collapsed lung, crushed what was it? I don't know if it's crushed vertebra. I can't even remember what it was, but I was messed up and I was laid up in a bed. Yeah, and I was in a lot of pain. Yeah,
Not a
and
fender bender is what you're
yeah,
trying
no,
to say.
I got pretty hurt and I got laid up and I had to take off work. I was stuck in my bed for a couple months. This was right about when COVID was possibly starting around this time.
Yeah, and even if, during your recovery and everything coming into recovering through and then COVID at the same time, I mean, that had implications across the board.
Oh, for sure,
Anything
for
that
sure.
happened that made it worse. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, the virus itself, but just the circumstances and what was going on at the time, it didn't make anything easier. It definitely made things harder. So,
Yeah.
to go through something like that at that time, just my opinion anyway, not a great time to have extra shit thrown at you was when we were all going through that at the same time. So,
For sure, for
but
sure.
I'm glad you're here and you're okay. I mean, of course.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that. Thank you. But so throughout most of my life, I had maintained, being able to party. And when it started catching up to me, say if I was drinking too much, for a period of time, and then I realized, hey, this isn't good, I would put it down, you know. And then I kind of just stopped, maybe just smoke pot here and there, things like that. But it would be like every couple of years, I get kind of bored and I'd be like, hey, I feel like, like getting
Yeah.
hot. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly. So I'm laid up in bed and I'm not feeling good at all, that they had put me in the hospital for overnight, but I didn't have any kind of insurance, so they kind of kicked me right out with nothing, with a collapsed lung and a and yeah,
Yeah.
thanks to the healthcare
Emergency
system
room,
in America, but yeah,
Band-Aid, patch you up, and that's about it. Yeah.
yeah, so I go down this rabbit hole of doing drugs and getting high, and it just turned into the most self-consuming thing that I've ever gone through. It culminated in me pretty much losing everything, having the biggest rock bottom of my life. Losing my fiance and not even being able to work and losing all my material things and everything. And at that point, I didn't even want to live anymore. You know what I mean? I got to a point where I just wanted to go take myself out. Yeah, but I prayed one night and I told God I didn't want to live like this anymore, like the type of life that I was living. The thing was, I had tried on my own to stop doing the drugs, right? But I physically could not do it. My body and my mind were so addicted to this that I had no willpower, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah, of
as I see
course.
everything's crashing and going up in flames around me, I'm like, hold on, look, you're gonna lose your you know what I mean? You've been with this girl 8 years, she's gonna leave, and um,
But you're choosing the drug. I mean, that's just showing the power of the addiction. People like
exactly, right,
sometimes
right, right.
people think like, see, like look at how people either one think about themselves and fill themselves with guilt, which is self-perpetuating and can cause one to stay in that cycle of use. But the other thing is, some people I think look at, addicts, and it's getting better, of course, all the time. I mean, there's a little bit more understanding and harm reduction, education, and recognizing what addiction really is. Personally, I don't believe that it's just a purely criminal. I think there's definitely an argument for a psychological disease type of
Sure.
conversation rather than just a criminal component. But we tend to look at the person as somebody who's doing these awful things and making these awful choices. And what kind of guy chooses getting high or, whatever he chooses, cocaine or
Right.
insert thing here over their career, over their fiance, over their this, over their that?
Kids,
You
yeah.
and I both know we don't choose. It's not chooses. Yeah, we have choices, but in that moment, in that thick of it, it's not how does that guy, it's how does that thing have that kind of power to take hold of people?
Mhm.
Not
Yeah,
not that guy,
I
but
think
all people.
mhm.
It's
Yep.
powerful. Drug addiction is so powerful to those who have, and to those who have experienced it, they know, and to those who haven't, I mean, shit, you know, it's indiscriminative. It doesn't matter who you are. If
The
it's
thing is,
something.
it can touch anybody, and there's different ways. There's a guy out on the street that's buying the $5 bag or whatever to get high, but then you've also got, say, the wife or the mother who's going to the doctor and who's getting, either pain pills or Xanax or whatever they need, and they're justifying it because, well, I get it from a doctor, you know what I mean? But they don't necessarily need it, and they're getting high off it, and they're addicted to it. But then they're looking right, right. But they're looking down at the guy on the street, but in reality, an addiction could hit anybody. Like you were saying, sometimes, if, say, a car accident, say your girlfriend
Yeah.
gets in a car accident, right? And she's really hurt, and they put her on powerful painkillers, and they start to wean her off, and she's physically addicted at that point. Then she's begging the doctor for more, then they give her more, then she's even more addicted. Then they start seeing addict behaviors, and they cut her off, right? And then so she's on the street, withdrawing from opiates, and then she's calling her friends going, "Hey, what do you got?" And then the next thing she's buying fentanyl or whatever on the street, and
Or
so
more
it
so,
can,
somebody's even
right,
offering it. They don't even, you
right,
don't have to ask. It's, hey, I have what I got you. I know somebody with
exactly,
those or
exactly.
whatever. It's
Yeah, man.
yeah, it's definitely a slippery slope, and it can be completely non-discriminative. That's the classic, perfect example is the doctor, and the doctor realizes there might be an issue, or either that, or they just realize there might be an issue on their personal side, or whatever their limits are, etc.
Uh-huh,
Either
uh-huh,
way, it still leaves that metaphorical person in that situation you just described, which is okay. I can either switch, having been somebody who's been through addiction and getting clean and having relapses and going back and being involved with the recovery and things like that. I know
uh-huh,
what dope sickness is.
uh-huh.
To the person I imagine who's just gone through a legitimate injury, who really does need the actual accepted medical intervention of painkillers and the gold standard of painkillers being opiate painkillers in this case, in this country, in this place and time. Why would they understand? Why would you understand that what that is? I mean, without having gone through that a few times, I imagine at first it's just without that medication, I'm in pain. I'm hurt from what happened to me. It's the pain from what happened to me isn't controlled, and I need to control it, which is a very honest and not ill-intended place to come from. But I mean, you can look at people like that, and sometimes fast forward. Shit doesn't have to be 10 years. You can fast forward 10 months in some instances, and that person is, robbing jewelry and pawning it to etc. I mean, it's just, and to me, that doesn't say, look at all the bad people. It says, look at how powerful these things are in their
True,
ability to
true,
hijack the human
correct.
brain.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Definitely, definitely. Yeah. But yeah, so everything had crashed and burned, and like I said, I was at the very bottom of the bottom. Couldn't control the addiction. Um, I had told myself that I was gonna get sober, and at a friend's house, I'm gonna stay at a friend, I'm gonna get sober, and so my friend, let me stay at his apartment to get clean, and I stayed there, and but the first day it
Wobbled and
was,
weebled a little bit.
I couldn't control my mind. The one side is saying, "You're sick, you need to go." And the other side's going, "No, look, you've already lost, like you're gonna die." Right. And that's like, to go back, that's when I realized I don't have control over this. I need help. And God was the one that I called out to, and I told him that like I said, I didn't want to live this way anymore, and he got me through that time. He gave me some calmness and allowed me to make it through this withdrawal, and it was a really bad withdrawal. It was so
Yeah.
bad that I kind of went into a psychosis and didn't even know what was reality and what wasn't. I had put so much drugs into my body that stopping that, my mind just couldn't even handle it.
Yeah, man, I
Yeah, yeah,
understand.
yeah.
That I have no problem talking about it, but the last time that I, substances, and the only way the way that I got off of them was I was in the county I was in the county jail for a couple of weeks, and I actually see that. I mean, this was some years ago, almost 4 years ago now. So I'm not painting a picture that it was decades ago, but it was almost 4 years ago now. That
Yeah,
was that was when I was
that's wild.
last, in that world. And honestly, every now and then I look back and assess the incident. That's behind me. I'm happy to say I dealt with all the very strict consequences of being, caught up in that situation. It's almost guaranteed that those things, when you sign up for those deals of being the perfect little Boy Scout for 3 years, they're just trying to wait so they can throw you in, give you more fines and stuff. But
Sure. Yeah.
hell, for me, I really was a Boy Scout for 3 years, and
Really? Okay.
well, Boy Scout. Sure, I feel like I really am a pretty decent person these days, and I'm clean and all that. So that's good. But yeah, I had to jump through some hoops to get to the other side of the
For
consequences
sure.
of my addiction. How it's not a trial and tribulation. I see it as testimony. It's something that I went through that
Exactly. Sure.
people aren't finding right away. It's something that I can tell them about if I want to. It's kind of an
Uh-huh.
inspiration thing.
Uh-huh.
Damn, did that take a lot of work. My goodness. And damn, did it take a lot to undo.
That when I first got sober, that first like week, it was like the movie Clockwork Orange, where they hold the guy's eyes open and you've got to watch a screen. And what played in my mind was all this stuff in life that I guess, using and drinking and all this stuff I had pushed down to not deal with or not handle. And I think a lot of society does that. It's we're always reaching for some type of crutch to not feel the way we feel or deal with either what's happened to us or what we've done in the past. And so, like I said, it was that first week, it was all these things, so overwhelming, and
Yeah, just
I'm like,
not
oh my,
not
r-
escaping. Like,
right,
no,
right,
I'm not gonna
exactly,
escape
right,
in
right,
any
right,
way, shape,
right,
or
right,
form.
right,
Like, because for
right.
me, I don't know about for you, but I think you could probably attest to this, that when really actually, I'm gonna back up a second. So you said that and I remember you said this earlier, that you had asked God for help.
Yes.
Did you have did you grow up with or develop, like religious beliefs or like a spiritual kind of system or anything like that prior to? Was that a big part of your life at any point before, hitting rock bottom and asking God for help, having that kind of like, wow, I have nothing but have a connection with some higher power. I'm going to ask you for help. Or was there always, did you ever, was that something that developed? Was it something that was always there? What was your spiritual slash religious, however you want to phrase it, background prior to
Good.
that?
So growing up, my parents were Christians. They would take me and my brother to church. I for a couple years I went to like a Christian private school. My best friend's dad was a pastor. I go to church camp and stuff. I was really kind of, I didn't like being waking up and taking to church at 8 in the morning on a Sunday when I'm a kid. But right. And it was something that I did enjoy. But I think just because you're raised in a certain religion doesn't mean that's what you're going to believe. You get to an age where you think for yourself and you decide like, hey, is this truth or not? And that's kind of what happened to me. I had to seek for myself. I wasn't just going to believe because my parents said this is what you are, you have to be. It's like I had to think for myself and do the research, and is this real to me? And so it proved true. I believed it, and I got baptized, and I was kind of on fire for God. And then that was right at the beginning of the teenage years where I decided I wanted to play around in the world a little bit more. You know what I mean? I wasn't ready
A
to
little more
walk
than the
down.
world of
I
the
wasn't
Word
ready
of
to walk
God.
right path, right. I wanted to do what I wanted to do. I wasn't
Uh,
ready to surrender to God. I wanted to, do my own thing. I got this. And
that's a good way of putting it, though. So I guess to sort of summarize it, it sounds like, Dutch knew to Dutch there was a God there. You had kind of established that to some
uh
degree. It was just I can get right later. I really
exactly.
want to kind of explore over here, man.
Correct. Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
I wanted to taste that forbidden fruit. And As a teenager, I was heavily into drugs also. It just never crashed and burned like it did about 5 years ago. It never took a hold of my life. But I mean, I got really deep into the rave scene, the ecstasy scene, and then, I was a pharmacy technician before I became a tattoo artist, but that's a whole different story with that one, so we won't touch that. But
Yeah, that's another funny little anecdote.
But in my 20s, I wrecked over 20 cars, you know, over
Damn, you're
20
like the
car
only person
wrecks
I know who's beat me.
in my 20s. Yep, two times in my life I've wrecked two cars in 1 week, and that's not to brag, but that's just to show like, you know, what could happen, but thankfully I'm still here. But so God was like with me during this time that I wanted to kind of turn from him and still rebel and do my thing. He didn't say, "Okay, I'm going to leave you alone." He agreed to be there. Right. He agreed to be there, and he still protected me through, all the crazy stuff. And in the tattoo industry there's all types of characters and bikers and gang members, and
Yeah,
I've had all those kind of characters throughout my whole life, and I've watched the guys die. I've had the friends overdose. I've had my good friends go to prison for a long, long time, and I kind of stayed out of all that, and my friends used to say, you're one of the smartest guys we know, because I would still participate in the things they participated in, but I wouldn't have the same consequences that they were facing, right? But it's not about intelligence or me being smart. It's that God had a protection over me. You know what I mean? What it is I think he knows people's hearts, right? And that's more what he cares about versus you walking around and trying to say beat your own drum and say, "Look at me, I help these people and I do that." You know what I mean? It's not about what you can do for God. You know what I mean? He cares about your heart is what he cares about. So I believe he knew my heart, and I believe I had a good heart, even though I was participating in all the sinful stuff. You know what I mean?
don't have that heart that's pure, that's in it, that
Right, and it
part
doesn't
of
mean that he doesn't love
Dutch
you,
that
right? And
God
right.
created and
Exactly.
loves.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Exactly. Yep.
it's
So
very
I
well
believe
said.
he was with me through all these years. There was times where rewind to where I was crashing and burning 5 years ago. I was passing out while I was driving, on the interstate multiple times, right? Completely falling asleep, like, and I'd like wake, my eyes would open a little bit, and my car is veering between all 4 or 5 lanes of traffic, and then I pass out at the wheel. And then I would wake up like 30 minutes away, parked on the side of the interstate, safe, right? And to me, there's no way that this is possible, because I was nodding out, you know what I mean? I was
It's
multiple times where
no
my eyes were
recognition.
closed and the car's going, right? Some people don't believe in spiritual things or things like that, but to me, I've seen it. It's happened. You can't tell me any different. I told one guy about that before, and he said, "Oh, well, maybe you were cognitive enough to be able to drive." And I'm like, you don't
That's
understand. That's
yeah,
not what was happening. You
I
know what I
agree
mean?
with you.
My
And
eyes were closed and my car was moving, between all the lanes. How am I going to be safe for another 30 minutes and then start safely park on the side of the road? That's not what happened, you know.
That's
But
and those are those miracles, brother, that
mhm, mhm,
we a lot of us, a lot of people, myself included, and even still when nobody's ever perfect. I know I'm always striving for growth and lifelong learning and improvement. And I think what that really means is the ability to look at myself with real discernment and see like, okay, from that third perspective and
mhm.
see not what's bad. Because like you said, I don't believe that we're inherently bad or anything like that. It's just what could bring me closer to. And people use the word God. That's obviously a very popular one, but you could use a lot of things. Universe, higher power,
Sure.
Allah, whatever the term is. That higher intelligence, that creator, the
Mhm,
one above. We all have
mhm,
that little bit of, most of us anyway, seem to have a little bit of that feeling inside of us. And
mhm.
I mean, it wouldn't be called God or what we are calling it if it had a defined mathematical proof that I could write on a paper right now. So
Mm-hmm.
I actually kind of take comfort in that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it just goes to show, that, people would argue things like, yeah, you were still cognizant enough to use your memory to do this because you've been driving and doing that so long, etc. Yeah, but from how you
Sure.
felt and from the experience that wasn't Dutch, that that there was some sort of intervention. And when
Sure.
you process of deduction go down and say, okay, there was some sort of, it's divine intervention. That's what that
Sure.
is. I mean,
I
when
agree.
you feel it and experience it, that becomes so powerful. It starts to feel like you can kind of take that trust fall in the other direction a little bit.
Sure. Sure.
So what was the point where you was there a point where you rock bottom? Where was that point where you finally like kind of paint me a picture a little bit? What was that time like when you finally asked God for help again? And then, how did things start to finally turn around? Like, as of recent in the last
Well, so at that period of time, when I asked God for help, I put myself in a 2-month rehab, and the rehab didn't keep me clean. Almost 95% of the people there were sent there from prison, and the people didn't really want to be there. There was a lot of drugs and things like that, and I didn't really learn anything, but I had made a decision that I was done with getting high or using drugs, and I wasn't going to do it anymore. I think that's a main thing with when somebody's addicted is that nobody, unless you want to stop like for yourself, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Then you're not going to stop, no matter what your wife or says, or if you lose your wife or kids, or they could be a little bit of a motivation. I mean, but you've really got to want it for yourself. And I had really come to that point because after losing everything and hitting that rock bottom, I was just sick of, living that way. It never turns out well. You know what I mean? You know what
yeah.
I mean?
They say there's
Uh,
not no happy ending to a dope
for
story.
sure, for sure, for sure. Yeah.
Frothy emotional appeal
Yeah.
seldom
Yeah.
suffices. Those
Yeah.
recovery phrases, but I mean
Yeah.
they have merit, or people wouldn't lose as much before hitting quote unquote rock bottom. And
Sure.
I think the stigma of, yeah, that's how addicts are, is not, that needs to be flipped to that's what addiction can do to a person if,
Sure.
left unchecked. I really try to blame the disease, not the
Sure.
suffering.
Sure.
Of course,
Yeah.
that being
Yeah.
said, there is some responsibility there, once you recognize these things. But in your case, I see, asking God for help, surrendering, going to a place where you say, they didn't make you clean. In fact, I had experience in those worlds as well. Yes, I agree 100%. There's always, that's just a fact. There's always people who are there because they just kind of have to be. It's the lesser of two evils. They don't really want to be there. And, but more importantly, nobody's getting or having that psychic change from, the rock and roll, I will shoot, snort, and smoke anything lifestyle to, true desire to change for anything and anyone but themselves. That's what it needs. You need that true desire to change for yourself. And that's what it sounds like you described you had. And then, you can be in a place where the chance of succeeding is 99% not going to happen, but you could be that 1% because
Sure.
you're ready. You asked God for help. You trusted that was going to come through in some way,
Uh-huh.
shape, or form.
Uh-huh.
That's the sauce.
Yeah, indeed. So the rehab, what was good for me was taking me out of my environment. You know what I mean? The so-called friends and the places and the memories and everything. That was really what was the main thing that helped me. Was taking me out of that environment, putting me in a place where I didn't have to worry about what's going on outside in the world. Because it's very difficult to try to get clean, but then oh, I've got to pay the bills, and you know what I mean? How am I gonna, it's nice to be able to take some time off, and it's necessary, you know what I mean? It's life is more important, so you put
Absolutely.
the whole world aside, and put me in this little thing and, let me work on, what I need to work on. Yeah.
Yeah, and just, like, I've been in those situations as well. It's for me anyway, at very bare minimum, it's forced abstinence. I mean, of course, there's ways to sneak things into anywhere, but it's kind of giving yourself errands or something, so to speak, at bare minimum. You just have
Sure.
that forced abstinence where you're not able, there's a lot of barriers in place where you don't have the ability to just send a text message and
Right. Exactly.
have
Sure.
whatever it is that's going to ruin your life just a little bit more, so drop it off at your house or whatever. So, I mean, just anything like that for anybody who's in that kind of situation where, there's a lot of people out there who are struggling with addictions to all different things, whether they be substances, behaviors, etc. Relationships, very much are at that point where they realize that they need something to change. For one reason or another, things aren't changing, and a lot of times I think that's I don't deserve it. There's no way I could change this. What else would I do?
Mhm,
That could start with anything. I mean, you could start with anything. It doesn't have to
mhm,
be a full blown magnificent $1 million recovery effort, just little
sure.
concepts like just these
Mhm,
slow drip things that are kind of that you're mentioning now. They all add up. Wouldn't you say? Doesn't all? It does happen
mhm,
at once. You have that big moment, but when
mhm,
you look back, there's a lot of little things that kind of led up to that big moment where you're like, all right, I surrender.
Correct.
Right.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah.
So
So I had
now,
yeah.
Are there are there certain practices that you kind of stick by now as far as like spiritual practices or anything, involving, God, religion, the 12 steps? Is there anything like that you kind of stick by as like a structure or no, not really, kind of just Dutch's own self-check program.
Yeah, what's interesting is I believe God worked with me personally to help me to let me get sober, right? And the stopping the drugs was that was just one part, right? I thought that was the ticket to everything in life, right? If I stop, doing drugs and getting high, then everything's going to be fine. And then and I was happy to get, because I was happy to get sober because I'm like I had just come out the very bottom, the pit of hell, you know what I mean? And so now the only way is up, So I was happy, just as happy as I am right now being stuck in a rehab, because I wasn't living that life that I was living anymore, that was just full of pain and sorrow and hurt and hurting
Sure.
others and things like that. Um,
Friends passing
yeah,
and just all that darkness.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. But I tried to do like, AA. I tried to get into the recovery community. It just was a little different. Some people like AA works for them, the sponsor method and things like that. With me, it was just more of a spiritual journey with God. I read my Bible. I have a relationship with God now. I consult him on decisions. And I think that's what he wants, is he wants a relationship. My spirituality isn't about doing things, or I have to say, go to church to earn God's love or whatever it is. I think having a relationship with God, talking to him, prayer, um let's see, what else do we got here? um I'm sorry, I lost for a second. But yeah, but just having a relationship with God, and faith is a big one. You know what I mean? It's faith is, it even talks about in the Bible. It says we're counted righteous because of our faith. So it's faith is a big priority from God.
I mean
And
that big verse 36 John 3:16, it just kind of sums it up like you simply believe.
right, correct. Yeah,
Then you'll have
exactly.
your ticket
Right.
into heaven.
Not
That's
by
not what it
your
says, but
works. Exactly. Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah. But and that's really, my whole mindset changed, when this little transformation happened, you know what I mean? It's almost like coming out of the Matrix, man. Like seriously. So I'm in this rehab and I'm outside and I'm smoking a cigarette, and on the radio there's some rap music playing, and it's going he's going hose, Molly, Molly, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, what the heck is that? I used to listen to stuff all the time, right? But the words were like sticking out, and I'm like, I'm thinking, I'm like, what is going on? Like, why are they talking about like drugs and sex and promoting it on the radio? It didn't like make sense to me. But it's almost like my eyes were opened. I stepped out of the matrix and I'm realizing that there's a lot of other stuff going on in this world that, you know what I mean, that there's
Yeah.
it's more of a spiritual battle is what it talks about, and
Yeah.
yeah, it
100%.
and I thought about, different time people over the years, I was kind of trusting of people and I had so-called friends that would be like, "Hey, try this pill," and then, I take it because oh, they're a friend of mine, and it's Adderall, and then, months later I'm taking 10 at a time, and you know what I mean? But I, right, I just learned I've kind of got to be on guard about things, not be so trusting, I've got to, think through a little bit more because I've been kind of living my life like there was never going to be a tomorrow, like sit, just you know what I mean? Not thinking about the future, or care,
Every day is Saturday. It's always
right?
just, I'm gonna pass out. I'm gonna wake up. It's gonna be Saturday night again. It's all good. It's gonna be
I could do this
Saturday
forever.
and
It's the older you
27
get, the
forever.
worse you feel. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
terrible. But
Forever 25 and Saturday.
yeah, yeah.
Doesn't happen.
Yeah, you get older and that's like the older guy that's at the high school parties, he's like the 38-year-old that's at the high school party, still trying to hang with and relive like, bro,
Those
hang it up,
glory days, yeah,
right? And
for
I think
sure.
we have to do that as people is eventually, it's like we've got to look at, whatever kind of addiction or crutch that we're using and decide if it's hampering our life, you know what I mean, and make a decision. Because to be completely sober and face life as it comes at you without needing to grab something to feel relief from, those are kind of the keys is what's allowed me to get where I'm at today, is learning how to handle life as it comes at you, the feelings, you know what I mean, and sitting in it, and dealing with rejection or whatever is going on, but it makes you stronger to you know, to handle it.
Percent. Yeah, it's funny. I did a live stream conversation with a friend of mine, Carly, the other day, and that was the majority of what we talked about is how, it's really about the magic happens when you can, from like kind of a, pardon me, from kind of a third party perspective, look at, events in your life and kind of redefine that positive and negative and just look at things as not that way, but as a third party observer, look at things, you know, unequivocally and with neutrality and see, what's serving you, what's in your way, what's not serving you, what is completely bringing you down, and what's obviously going to, might in the zoom in the smaller picture look like a challenge or, even a tragedy. But when you zoom out, it's the only way up. It's the way to the bigger you. It's the way to the better you. It's the only way to rid that attachment that would have held you down forever.
Correct.
Uh, the ability to look at those moments, even in hindsight, and I guess the further that hindsight, the ability that we have to shorten that length of hindsight so we can actually occasionally be in the moment and look at things like that is when we really can start to really grow all the time. But I love how you said
Right.
that, you almost kind of knew that there was some kind of God or some kind of higher power always with you. I think that's
Definitely.
true for everybody.
Mhm. Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
if there is a God, I don't believe that it's the Old Testament angry, bitter, pissed off God. It's
Mhm.
definitely it's a force of love. It doesn't have to be termed God. We can call it love. We can call it universe. But it doesn't want bad for you when you want good. When your intentions are good. When you're really ready. When you really feel that. I mean, it's just discernment.
Yeah, to me, it was proven, that God can take me out of the situation and change my life because just allowing me to get sober, go through the rehab, and then when my life really started changing, it was obvious to me, and I think to the people around me that there was a hand in my life, helping me out, because things started happening that weren't normal. I left the rehab after 2 or 3 months, I believe it was 3 months. I had kind of graduated the program, and I left and I had $10 in quarters in my pocket, and one of the guys in there gave me $80 in food stamps. Because I had like nothing. Everything had
Right.
crashed
Yeah.
and burned and disappeared, and I had nothing. So I went to this rehab with nothing. I had people offering, "Hey, come live with me." Hey, and I'm like, I
Right.
need to do this on my own. You know what I mean? Without anybody. I need to get on my feet and do this. And so I
Yeah.
left with that, and somebody had told me about a place down in Key West that was kind almost like a halfway how they help you get on your feet down there. And I caught a ride from a friend and I went down to Key West, 3 months sober, with $10 in quarters and a card with some food stamps. And I get down there. I'm only in the house, the sober house, for maybe 3 or 4 days. Right when I got down there, I got a job as a tattoo artist. I got hired in a shop and I started tattooing. And I started making really, really good money. People just started coming and tipping me really well. Even the shop got busier when I showed up it was also when COVID had ended. I'm not necessarily saying me coming in there brought them more money, but something changed. It was the end of COVID and things were going really well. And I only needed to work 3 days and I had enough money to get my own apartment. Within the end of the week, I had enough money to buy a nice car. Within 3 weeks, I had a gold presidential Rolex, on my wrist. Within 2 months, I was one of the highest earning tattoo artists in the United States. I started doing 500,000 in tattoos a year. And the last year that I had worked, right before this crash and burn of everything, I think it was right when COVID started happening. I only made $6,000 for the whole year. And then when I get clean and surrender to God, I start making like 6 grand a week. You know
Mm.
what I mean?
It's incredible.
And yeah, and then doors just started opening up. I was able to travel and
Yeah.
and buy what I wanted to buy. I went to I was in a private island in the Bahamas, like horseback riding in the water, like just
Living
really
the
amazing stuff that I
good
never
life.
thought I'd be able to do in my life. And then I was able to buy everything I wanted. I'm like, man, all the stuff I wanted as like a kid. I always looked up to the
Yeah.
guys with big gold chains, and
Right.
I'm able
I
to
wanted
drop,
that watch.
right,
Yeah.
I dropped like 30 grand on the diamond chain, and it was all unnecessary purchases, but it was, to me, it was cool to be able to be at a point where I could afford the
Reward that
the
younger
things that
self
I've
a
always
little bit.
wanted my whole life. Right, right, right. At one
That's
point I bought sorry, go ahead.
that's its own thing, to reward the old self. I mean, that's a part of it. To say that stuff is inherently evil is, I disagree. I mean,
Mhm, mhm,
w-
mhm.
just like we want to give somebody a gift, we deserve to give ourselves
Right, right,
gifts
right.
once in a while too.
Sure, right, right. And I had been through some serious stuff, and other stuff that I haven't talked about in this podcast, but maybe another time. But
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. We can go a little
I
deeper
felt
on this one.
I was, yeah, yeah, but I was, feeling good and accomplishing goals. I think I mentioned to you at one point I bought a Maserati Gran Turismo convertible with cash. I flew to Hawaii. I was thinking of maybe buying a shop out there. I was talking up to like world famous tattoo artists and hanging out. They're, hey, come to my shop, and flying up there and hanging out. I felt like anything was possible in my life. You know what I mean? Is what I felt. And the material things are cool, but I learned that the material things don't bring the happiness, because I bought all types of Gucci, Louis Vuitton, all this stuff, right? But a lot of times, even like with the car, after having it about 3 or 4 days, it kind of wears off a little bit. It's like, oh, I get
Yeah.
to drive this really cool car, but it doesn't change me how I feel as a person. So I learned material things, they don't necessarily bring happiness, you know. But
Yeah, to me, they seem, for me anyway, they seem to be more reflections of how I'm
Mhm.
doing internally.
Yes,
And when
correct. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
doing
Yeah.
well
Mhm,
internally,
mhm,
which
mhm.
usually means I've got a solid, discerned, balanced head on my shoulders, and I'm also well aware that while I'm one, a conscious creator and, have the ability to make choices too, the exact opposite of that. I mean, there's a force far greater than I that I'm not in control of, that not saying things are predestined, but that has, for lack of a better word, a plan, a sort of a rhythm to it that is divine, beautiful, written, and outside of my ability to control. And probably don't want it to be in my control, because if I knew, tried to control it in the moment, it wouldn't work in my favor. That's the answer. That's what, when people talk about the law of attraction and manifestation, that when you're in that zone where you can have that trust, and you're relishing in, even material excess and things like that, you're likely, or you're at least more probable to attract more of that, because that's the mindset you're in. And
Sure.
I think the secret to that is knowing that it's not all you, that it's about that momentum, that rhythm of believing in self, believing in the power of what your creator wants for not just you, but for everybody, for your relationship with self, relationship with him. And that was something else that you said that was really impactful to me, was that it's about having that relationship with quote unquote God. I couldn't agree with all you said there. That I couldn't agree more with that statement there. I don't think anybody's checking points on Sundays or Fridays or whatever days. I think it's all about personal relationship with Creator. You hit the nail on the head with that one.
Thanks.
Yeah, that's when the inner state starts to like as well said, reflect externally. But just having a shit inner state and going and buying one of these because you can is going to make your internal state better.
Yeah,
Would you
man.
agree?
But yeah, so life was going good. I had the material things, I had the job, making all the money, and girls were coming around. It's interesting, the more you kind of work on yourself, which is what I was doing in all different ways, and health, spiritually, you know what I mean? Things like that. You attract more, you know what I mean? Like, people see your energy, and I felt what I had was a light kind of in me, and I think people noticed that, even other guys, people that I worked with down there, they weren't making anywhere near the kind of money I was making and things like that, but I was also living differently than what they were living. They were partying and stuff, you know what I mean? And after work, they were still in that same thing I was doing years ago. And to me, if you want your life to excel or to change, and you want to reach for the stars, well, you've got to behave different than everybody else. You can't be doing what everybody else is doing. You know what I mean? You got to be always, in your mind, planning it out and working it out. It's taught me that, having goals and things, I feel I'm careful to ask God for what I want, because I think he pretty much gives me, you know what I mean? Like, or allows me. It's interesting as long as it's good for me, you know what I mean? But it's just, yeah, it's really a real interesting thing.
Yeah, I used to do the same thing, kind of like a lot of people do, those quote unquote foxhole prayers, where you kind of pray for what you want, or you ask for yourself to get out of a horrible
Right?
situation or whatever.
Yep.
But now, I mean, I meditate a lot. That's kind of my, quiet time. And I've heard it said that prayer is talking to God, meditation's listening to God. It's like, I don't know, I
Okay.
sit
Interesting. I
down
like that. Yeah, that's
sit
cool. I
down and
like that.
meditate a lot, but I
Yep.
feel like I'm kind of doing both, just personally communing with God, my creator, my whatever you want to call it. That's when things really come to life for me. And sometimes things aren't amazing. Like you said, there was things that you had to realize that, I'm sure weren't easy to go through, but that's the magic sauce. That's when things really start. That's when you start making more money than everybody at the same shop than you, or
Right.
losing weight inexplicably, or operating on less sleep, but you're still just fine. Like, those inexplicable changes in life that happen to us, I've experienced them. People have heard me talk on them. It seems like you kind of experienced that divine intervention as well, which is
Huh?
effing amazing. Just
Huh?
that
Let's get that.
kind of inexplicable besides anything, a little bit supernatural, a little bit paranormal, a little bit beyond typical, just logical scientific understanding. And that's really the success to me these days. I mean, I used to be a militant atheist back when I was younger, in college and things like that. It's been some years, but now I'm in a place where I host a show that is very much kind of geared towards, understanding and exploring, the supernatural, the divine, the bridging of science and spirituality, so to speak. And it's just beautiful. It's beautiful to see in myself. I do a lot of self-reflection, and when I see it in others, such as you, Dutch, it's incredible because I remember we used to hang out, back in the day and stuff, and weren't sitting there talking about what was best for self-growth and improvement and what God wanted. I mean, let's be honest, it just wasn't the way it was.
I probably would have told you to go somewhere else with that, guru.
Like I don't need a guru. I'm doing fine. I'm doing just fine. you know. But yeah, so that you're a shining example of that. How things can really
Appreciate that.
go from it doesn't have to be like you don't have to start at the bottom and then fall to the depths of hell. You can have a great situation. You can rise up high, do all the right things, and finding yourself lost. I mean, for a lot of people I speak to in Dutch, I guess, including yourself, a lot of that seems to be severe disconnection from Creator, a severe disconnection from
Yes.
the divine.
Yeah. I think that's what it was, and I think a lot of people go through this when they're trying to fill a void, right? And I believe that that void is God. And I think a lot of people, that's why they go, either to a strip club or be with a girl or to smoke or drink or whatever it may be, that their vice or whatever, a lot of times they're searching for and I think that's kind of what I had when I decided I wanted to get high. I mean, I think there was a void because that relationship with God wasn't there, wasn't where it was supposed to be. And yeah, now, I'm kind of filled with that void is filled. So now I'm not searching the normal things of the world. So I was down in Key West. I was trying to open a tattoo shop. It's very difficult to open tattoo shops down there. A building opened up here, right on the main road to Cocoa Beach, like 3,500 square feet. I've got enough room for about 8 artists, but currently it's just my private tattoo shop. It's this is like a dream or a dream of a lot of artists.
It's
Now
great.
I'm my own boss. I don't have to answer to anybody if I want to close for the day or whatever it is. I'm doing extremely well, especially for a new business.
And room to
Um,
expand and such
yeah,
too.
and
That's
I told
great.
you I'm going to Japan, and it's really cool that any kind of little dream or I'm like I can do it, and
You probably
it's really
actually
cool, but
do
it's
it.
not all self. It's more God. You know what I mean? I give him the credit because he's the one who got me sober. Yes, I had to put in the work to stop, but he was gonna lessen what I was going through, the withdrawals or whatever it was, you know what I mean? He was going to help me get through it, you know what I mean? So that I can do the things that I'm doing today. And, overall, I like my life. I wake up, I'm going to tattoo today in my own shop. What's going to go on? But life is not easy. When I got, sober, I started having these symptoms, and it turned out to be ADHD, and this is something, again, I was talking about reasons why I could have been getting high all these years, but I have, I found out I have severe ADHD. I get severely overwhelmed during the day, lights and people talking and little things can irritate me, someone tapping their foot while I'm trying to tattoo, and in people, I'm very sensitive to like people's energy when they come walking in. You know what I mean? If it's negative,
Yeah.
and I'm very affected by these things. So life is not easy. I had one guy, he saw the way that I live, and he goes, "Oh, must be nice not to have problems," And I look at, because people are seeing all the accomplishments, the outside, you know what I mean? The material things I have and businesses, and that I'm overall a happy person. But it's a fight every day, you know what I mean? And I also realize I've done a lot of damage over the years to my body, you know what I mean, my mind. So I've got to, it's got to be a continuous keep working, try to do a little exercise or at least some stretches or or eat healthy or whatever it's going to be. because I want to live now. Before I didn't want to live past like 65, right? Because I'm like, this world is tough, it's painful, it's hard. I don't want to live old, and I don't want to be old and in a nursing home. You know what I mean? But
I used
now
to
I,
think the
I
same way.
right now I want to
Not gonna be
live.
old.
Right, right. Now I want to live, and part of that is also because I have purpose now, because I've got sober and now I have the tools to tell other people how to get through what I've been through. And I get to do that, especially having my own tattoo shop. Sometimes we talk about personal things and I get to help and share.
Yeah,
And that's one of the best part is being able to help other people that are going through the same things I've been through.
absolutely. And you're in that perfect spot really to grow. Like you've got room for more artists. You're not in need of having to pull any on to, make your ends meet or anything like that. But all of a sudden, if the right guy comes along that you just really want to, who's so passionate and you want to you want to help him, you want to mentor, you'll be in a position to help people. And I believe, like, just for that example, and that's just one of many in the way that you live now, those material things, those little comforts that we all everybody has different things that we enjoy. Some of us like watches, some of us like cars, some of us like whatever, nice furniture, whatever it might be. Those little, and I stand by, those things, they really are likely externalization of your internal state. And I think, that stuff is there to really just nudge you along, keep you a little, remind you that you're probably walking what seems to be a genuinely righteous path. And, in the big scheme of things, those are things to remind you that you're on the right path, to reward you, not reward you in the sense of, a monetary reward, but to show whatever your version of, excess is. We all have one. I think that happens to us when we find that purpose that you're talking about, that ability to, wow, I don't want to die young. I want to do this if I could do this forever, I would do this forever because it feels so good. I'm a net positive in the world. Like to me, and when I just personally identifying with it, when I first started to personally feel like that was that's when I first stopped feeling guilty about like doing things like driving a nice car or wearing a nice watch or whatever, where I never used to feel guilty about that stuff. I never thought about it. I just thought like I have to flex as hard as I possibly can because I have to. And then, there was a period of time where it's like, pardon my mic there, where, denial of material things and thinking that stuff's evil. But, now I think the real true understanding is no, that stuff comes to you as, like I've said, not to repeat, but a externalization of the, interior state of self. And, if you're doing well, if the universe is throwing you amazing things and you're attracting awesomeness in material excess, then that might mean that it just might mean that you're doing good things and putting positive intention out there into the universe. And that's that new earth that we all, hear about, talk about, etc. It doesn't have to be you have nice things. So you must be a drug dealer. You must be corrupt. Like, no, maybe you just really let go and let God. And that's why we have nice things.
It's just some people can't fathom, right? Some people can't fathom people like us, whatever we are, rebels tattooed up, or however we look, or what we came from. Some people can't imagine,
like
us
an
being on top. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
like
Us
an
getting up there with the other people that
parallel
that have
spiritual
the
path.
silver spoon in the mouth, right? You know what I
Right.
mean? Like they can't see somebody coming from the bottom,
Which
and
is
maybe
interesting,
right, right, yep.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. But yeah, I think we're in a period in time where that idea is kind of shifting a little bit, and I'm happy to be a part of that. I'm happy to, I mean, personally, and help just be a platform for people who have a story like that, people who are doing amazing things, especially in rather, untraditional ways. Because what is traditional anyway? The world's always changing. We're adapting. We're growing. People say the same things to me about, well, you don't have to do it now. You don't have to go to 9 to 5. You don't have this. Like, we all have our own things we've got to deal with. There is a way for everybody to escape that traditional, program, 9 to 5, matrix job, etc., all that stuff. I mean, and call me crazy, but it just need to let go, let God. I don't
Yep,
know.
yep, yep, yep.
Well, Dutch, is there anything that you want to say to the audience? I'd love to have you on again, and then we can, have a little bit
Appreciate that.
further conversation, go into a little more depth and such. But I was
Uh-huh.
happy to have you on and
Appreciate that.
get a
Thank you.
conversation going. I'd like to get your shop's name out there and anything that you're promoting, your Instagram
Yeah.
handle, wherever anybody can see your work.
Okay.
Where would you like people to see that stuff?
So the website name, surfingsamuraitattoo.com. We've also got an Insta, Surfing Samurai Tattoo. But yeah, check us out. Like I said, currently it's my private shop, but I do all styles of tattoos and appreciate it,
Yeah,
brother. Thank
yeah, I absolutely can vouch for that. I've seen a lot of Dutch's work, not on the internet, on my friends in person, and not just my friends, people I don't even know. I've seen Dutch's work. He's a very,
you,
very good
brother.
artist. I can say that.
Appreciate that. Thank
You guys know I'm not like easy tattoo. I've
you,
got
brother.
a couple here and there, but yeah, I've never heard anything but of freaking amazing things about Dutch. And
Appreciate that.
while
Thank
he lives in the other coast now, I still reside in the area where he used to tattoo, and he's got a great
you.
reputation. So that's
Appreciate that.
I'll
Thank
just
you,
say
brother.
that.
Thank you.
It's great to see that you're doing so well these days. It's
Thank
great to see that you've got a shop. Congratulations, that things are going well for you, that you're here, that you're clean, that you're sober.
thank you.
Honestly, I would love to have you on again, have another chat, check in, touch
For sure.
base, maybe dive in a little bit deeper on the topic, maybe even do a live stream or something where people can kind of chime
Appreciate
in and
that.
ask questions. That might be cool.
Appreciate that.
But yeah, I want to be respectful of your time, and I think we're at a reasonable little spot here. So I just always want to give somebody a chance to say anything they want to say before we sign off. Absolutely.
Oh,
Otherwise, everybody, viewers, guests, friends, my family, anybody who's here, we appreciate you so much. Click that like button, that subscribe button, comment. It really helps the channel. We technically, I guess we really are still a very new show. It's been like, okay, check, it's been like 10 or 11 weeks. So it really has not been that long, although I remember seeing 8 weeks. So it is climbing, things are getting older. We've got a lot of press coming up, a lot of fun stuff. Shout out to Portal to Ascension. We've got some stuff going on with them actually tomorrow that will be coming out later this week, and events that we're going to be doing with them this year. So that's going to be awesome. GFL, Unified Guy, we love you. Dutch Johnson from Surfing Samurai Tattoo.
thank you.
You're the
Oh,
man, my friend. It
thank
was
you, brother.
so good to
Appreciate it.
reconnect with you, and I'm serious to have you on again so we could maybe dive
Thank
into
you, bro.
something a little.
Huh?
Your story's broad. I wanted to touch on a lot of things
Yeah,
there and
yeah.
just
There's some
reconnect.
cool
But
stuff. I'm not letting it all out right now, but
yeah,
yeah, there's some
why let it
interesting.
all fly in one episode, right? Drip, drip, drip. But yeah, please check out Surfing Samurai Tattoo. Check out Dutch's page. I'm certain you'll like some of the artwork you see on there. It's prime tattoos. And a gentleman and a scholar, a fine gentleman to know.
Appreciate it.
So
Thank you.
Dutch, we'll sign off. It's been about 90
Uh,
minutes here, so I think that's pretty good. Thanks so much for being a guest on the Immersive Podcast, man.
Thank you, bro.
You'll be one of those repeat guests, if and only if you want
Appreciate
to,
that.
of course. I've
Of
never
course,
twisted
yeah,
anybody's
man.
arm.
I enjoyed it, brother. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was great, man. Thank you. For sure.
All right. Well, don't log off just yet, but everybody, thank you all. Just have a freaking amazing day.